You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So Syracuse added Georgia defensive back Chris Peal in the transfer portal, a 2023 four-star recruit. How do you think he fits in with Syracuse football?
You know, it's really interesting with some of the recent commits they've had. They've had a Pringle. They have had a Rice. They now have a Peel, and then they have a Cook. So I don't know if Fran's just hungry. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but listen, Chris Peal,
You're forgetting one.
Who am I forgetting?
Peanut butter and jelly.
That's right. That's a good call. I don't know how I forgot that, that nickname is fantastic, by the way, and I'm really disappointed in myself that I didn't come up with that. But as far as Chris Peal goes, they've clearly been looking to add someone to the defensive back room, and specifically looking at corner. We know that they were looking at Julian Neal earlier in the offseason. They've had a couple others that they've been linked with. So you knew that they were going to try to grab someone that they thought could impact the room. Now, they wanted someone with experience, which some of the other guys that they were looking at bring. Chris Peal only has 4 or 5 games of experience in the 2 seasons that he was with Georgia. So he doesn't bring a ton of, on the field experience, but he is out of high school for multiple years. And he was someone that was extremely highly regarded coming out of high school. It's a top 300 overall prospect, someone with great length at the cornerback position at anywhere from 6'1" to 6'3", depending on where you're looking, and also a track star. So he's not just one of these bigger corners that's 6'1", 6'3", but a little bit slow of foot, right? He's not that. He's a track star as well. Ran a sub 11 second 100 meters in high school. Really good long jumper as well, and a triple jumper. So this is an all-around high-level, elite-level athlete. And I think he gives Syracuse someone, again, with length, with good coverage skills, and a lot of untapped potential. Is he going to start? I don't know. But you would have to figure he's coming in at a minimum with a chance to compete for significant playing time.
Gotcha. And along those lines, you mentioned all those attributes with Chris Peal. How come things didn't necessarily work out for him at Georgia?
Georgia always seems to have 5-star NFL caliber players at every single position. So it's not overly surprising when you have a 4-star top 300 prospect that first couple of years at a school like Georgia isn't playing a ton. And even go back to last offseason when Syracuse got Jackson Meeks. And I don't think that anyone thought Jackson Meeks was going to be someone that made a significant impact on the offense. And then you get to the end of the year and you could make the argument that he was your most reliable pass catching target, and turned that opportunity into being an undrafted free agent as an NFL prospect, which he wasn't on anyone's radar coming into Syracuse, primarily playing special teams at Georgia across 3 or 4 seasons. So when you have a team like Georgia, a lot of these SEC powers where the rosters are loaded, there are guys that are second, third, fourth string that are very talented football players that can help other teams. And Syracuse is certainly hoping that Chris Peal will fall into that category just like Meeks did.
Well, I think all Syracuse fans hope that is exactly the case. And it's actually, in my opinion, one of the big benefits of the transfer portal. A lot of people hate the portal. And there are some reasons to hate the portal, especially when you see a guy like Trevor Pena walk out the door, or Murad Watson just gets a huge money offer from a big-time school, and there's just nothing that Syracuse can really do about it. But one of the big benefits of it is you can no longer recruit all these 4 and 5 stars and then no longer play them. So if you don't play them, they're going to leave in the portal and they're going to go elsewhere. And we saw it last year with Jackson Meeks. It can work out to a team's benefit, especially because, hey, like you said, Jackson Meeks became an all ACC wide receiver. And it's funny, Mike, because he wasn't really on anyone's radar, so much so that not even really on the coaching staff's radar. He wasn't a starting wide receiver to begin the season.
No, and, it's funny when all of the offseason prognostications, I think, had Justus Ross-Simmons as being the biggest impact transfer wide receiver that they were going to have. And instead it ends up being Jackson Meeks. Now, injury certainly played a part of that. But, you know, it just goes to show you that you never know. I mean, they had a transfer wide receiver from South Carolina before this Trevor Pena situation happened, and then they end up going and getting Jonte Cook. And now I understand that Jonte Cook is an extremely talented football player. Hasn't realized that yet at the collegiate level, but he was an elite level recruit for a reason. There is a lot of untapped potential there. But what if it's not him? What if it's the kid from South Carolina? What if it's Darryl Gill that breaks out? I mean, Emmanuel Ross, who was a 4-star recruit that came in a couple years ago. The thing is, you just don't know how everything's going to work out. And sometimes players, let's be real, every single player that ends up going to a Power 4 school out of high school is like at the elite 1% of athletes at the high school level. They're all very talented. And so sometimes situation, opportunity, coaching method, scheme, all of those things can play into how successful you are.
Right. And you know what? They are better athletes than you and I. They are certainly they're not even 1% of the world, Mike. They're like 0.0001%.
It's
of
insane.
the world. They are insane athletes.
It is.
You think I can run a 4.3 40? I can run maybe a 5.5 40. 5.5.
Yeah, it's
how you run a 4.3, John. And also along those lines, like, look, you keep throwing darts at the dartboard, and no pun intended with that, but you keep throwing darts at the dartboard and it increases your chances of actually hitting on a couple of these players. So whether it's Jonte Cook or it's Chris Peal, I know it's a different position, but Jonte Cook or a Tyshawn Russell, you know, you just keep throwing darts over there and you get one player to hit. Well, boom, you look like a genius.